Welcome to episode 104 of A Master's Degree in Rolling Terribly. I'm your host, Eddie, and I'm happy and completely balanced. And joining me this week, our man who has transferred his null curse once again to yours truly. And now I have a better understanding of what he went through for 2 years. And it needs to stop. Gaz! Say hi, Gaz.
Hi guys, and we're not sure if I've transferred it or if I have just infected you as well. I'm finding I'm really not flipping that many AMDs at the moment, not on the Beetle. Like maybe 2 or 3 at most in a scenario, which should be enough to see if the second card is a null, right? But yeah, you have been enjoying some null action. And I think you said to me after the session last week, you were like, I actually like it's just really annoying. Like it's upsetting. It's like it makes it not fun. And I was just like, mate, are you like I get that. I actually get that, but like more than you think.
I,
So
I get very far
yes.
through my deck before I get to it. It's just annoying when I finally get to it, and it's usually during some moment, which, by the way, is a very core part of how the game works, all the way back to when it started. Right? Shouldn't be a surprise to me. It's just for some reason I think it's because I'm playing a character that's going through their deck quite quickly, and therefore you're at a 50% chance of it's going to be the null or the crit, right? Because I do crit a few times as well.
100%. And you also are playing a character where most of your attack actions are impactful. So, like, I mean, even if you looked at it, 50% of them, like the sated attack abilities you use, are going to be impactful. So it's even more of a letdown. If you're just doing a bunch of attack 2s and attack 3s, nobody really cares,
That's
right?
true. That's true.
So,
Yeah, okay.
you're more funneled into, oh, well, this I've put resources into this attack, and so it better hit. Oh, wait, not only did it not hit, like, I didn't get a green card, I got that stupid null card.
Yeah, which I drew 3 times this week and 3 times last week.
Mm. Yep.
Which and there were some crits peppered in there, but currently the nulls are outweighing the crits, which is why QQ upset.
Mm.
Would
Yep.
you
So,
ever
yeah.
consider? And I'm asking you this. This is not a you and me thing. Would you ever consider the +2 -2 rule?
Nah. I think I did mention that at the end of the session, right? I'm like, look, I wouldn't do it, but I can completely see why people do the variant where you can, yeah, replace the null with a -2 and the what crit with a +2.
Yeah, but you got to
Yeah.
take the good with the bad, and that's with everything, right? You
Mm.
just if you're gonna play risk, that's literally risk reward.
Although
You got to
in
risk it for
saying
the
that,
biscuit.
I think that that is an overall nerf to the power level of the characters. Because I think a
Yeah,
crit is more impactful than a miss. Well, I mean
on
that's
many
that's
characters.
subjective. Pardon?
On many characters who are hitting very big.
Mm.
I think if you're doing a big attack, like when I was playing the media and I was doing double double, that kind of thing, right? If things were maybe brittle, like yeah, if you're doing a big chunky attack, if the majority of your attacking is anywhere between maybe the 2, 3, 4 range, but you can line up either through combos with items and other abilities to make it an attack 7, like Mark does. He does like an attack
Mm.
8 on one of his merciless beatdowns. Yeah, it's a massive nerf.
Mm. And I think, I mean, it would change the way people build characters because the thing is, no, I haven't really had a character that's kind of all in on one attack, but I know you, Phil, and Mark kind of have, and you've had that hit my power potion, hit my item, but then also hit an advantage, something that gives you advantage. So whether it be, goggles or whatever, there's a variety of them, to make sure that you don't miss,
Mm,
right? Because you are all in. So, uh, that's where that it's not just a case of, well, when you do a big attack, you've got equal chance of missing and critting because you're actually stacking in your favor and that you probably can't miss unless there's curses in your deck. So I feel like maybe then if that was the case, then you'd still build that way, but it's just gonna overall be a chance of less damage because you
yeah.
don't have a chance of pulling uh that purple card. So yeah, it's just an interesting. I hadn't thought of it when we brought it up multiple times during the variant things, but yeah, I think it might be an overall nerf to damage.
Yeah, what we need is we need like either someone to come tell us how their group plays with the +2 -2 rule. So basically the rule is it's a house rule. It's a house rule that's actually in the rule book, at least in the Frosthaven rule book, where it's like it's a variance there. That's the word I'm looking for. And you replace the crit, the ×2 with a +2 and the miss null with a -2. We need someone like Ricewind, mate. If you could finish a campaign in the next week and do this variant for us and then report back to us as to how it impacted each and every character and how, that would be actually fantastic because we could use that data. And I know you seem to like doing that.
Yeah, yeah, just do a report on it, and then we'll put it in Chat GPT and summarize it down to like 5 lines, and then we can read that and understand the impacts, right?
Yep.
The only other thing is, does that also apply to the monsters?
Yeah, I think so.
Ooh, see, I reckon there's been some amazing moments where they've pulled a miss, and that's been
Mm.
really critical to the tension, right? Like,
Yes.
and either being on 1 HP or, having a ward or a region that you really need to keep or something. Something around where a -2 wouldn't have done that. It
Mm.
would have been like, "Oh, you still take 1 damage and die," or something. So I feel like, again, from a tension perspective, yes, the crit sucks, and it's always bad when that comes up, but the null has come up over multiple times in our Frosthaven campaign where you're like, "Oh my god, that's so clutch."
Yeah.
Like, what are the chances that it pulls it now, and now that means that we're gonna survive another turn or even complete the scenario or something, and I think those moments would be missed,
Yes,
right?
100%.
No
Even though
pun
even
intended.
towards the end of a scenario when it's so we've had those in Frosthaven where it came down to the last 2 turns and I'm gonna do an attack on this and the tension of just knowing that you can miss. There's a 1 in however many that you're gonna fluff this turn and potentially cook the scenario. It
Mm.
raises those stakes and you can't replace that feeling by adding in +2 -2.
Yeah, that's a good point actually. In that, yeah, if you got something on 1 HP and you're doing an attack 2, right? Sorry, an attack 3, and you have playing with this variant,
You
then
know.
it's deterministic, which I guess is the one of the good things about Frosthaven is there is enough randomness in it to uh, avoid that it's all mathed out,
Mm.
right? Like that permanent, just like this is what things do, and but not so much that it becomes just like potluck casino, dungeon crawler. But interesting again, like just I would probably not intend to speak about this for as long
No,
as we
I'm
have,
moving
but
on as soon as you're done. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But the variant doesn't remove or the curses and the blesses, which I feel I know that they're statuses and they come up um
Unless they count as +2 and -2 as well.
maybe, yeah, that'd be interesting to know if they I mean, because they'd have to, right?
That would make
Otherwise
the
there's
most
no.
sense.
Like, you can't crit or miss unless this thing happens and then you still can, and so you still feel it's just as bad. The rule's still there. Yeah, anyway, cool. Anyway, interesting. Like, I feel like the fact that we've talked about this about 5 times so far in the last 100 episodes and we're still finding ways to milk content out of it, I think is testament to either how deep the rules are or how good we are at going on about the same thing.
Maybe we just make it sound fresh every time.
That's it.
Anyway, for the remaining 3 people, on today's episode, right after our dirt sheet, we'll be covering scenario 5. Now, this is Crimson Scale scenario 5, Blood of the Oozes. amDirt Diaries makes a reappearance, Bleeding Claw and Beetle. And then we're going to talk about the items of Crimson Scales. We've talked about them during, obviously, the playthrough and using them and all that, but we're going to have a bit more of a dive and actually say, not quite hits and shits like we did towards the end of our Frosthaven, but more about what our thoughts are about the items that we've been collecting and are they good or not?
Yes,
Yeah.
they
Or
are.
have we worked them out? Are they well designed?
Oh, well designed. Okay, I was going to say they're all OP, but
All right, dirt sheet. So this week on the dirt sheet, I've actually putting this out to our audience. If anyone has any ideas for an extra, maybe video, even if it's a one-off or a series or something that Gaz and I can maybe put together, because I'm kind of itching for a tier list of some variety. I'm itching for a tier list or a top 10 or something. And it's a little bit too early to kind of put one together from Crimson Scales, right? I mean, we could technically put together a predictions tier list for Crimson Scales and actually, rank where we think the power level of them are going to be based on absolutely nothing but the
uh,
class symbol, and then
a hun-
measure it when we finish.
100%, let's do that. That sounds amazing. Like, it's so I'm annoyed that we didn't think about that before we played it at all. Like, because we've seen 6 characters now, right?
Yeah,
So,
there's still a lot to
or
go.
7. Yeah, there is still a while to go, but no, 100% we need to do that. That's something we could bang out really quickly because we have 0 information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is your opportunity to come up with a video for us to put together. And if we get one suggestion, I guess we will go with whatever that is. So that could be real.
No, we will consider all suggestions.
So yes, those in our Discord, do leave them in there, or email them to us. The details should be in the show notes. Anyway, off to scenario 5. So on our way to scenario 5, we do our standard city event and our road event. This week we had city event 29. As your face has given me that face that you've been giving me for about 2 years now.
Yeah. Although I just found out that all of the events are also on the gloomhavencards.com.
Yeah, that's where I got them from.
Didn't realize. Oh, I thought
Oh,
you just got the card.
oh no, that's silly.
Oh, okay. So now I can look up what 25 is.
29 city.
29, yeah. Okay.
But the summary of it was we trek through the mountains near the city, and a desperate cry for help catches our attention. Investigating, we find a massive Savas trapped between 2 rocks, his leg wedged tightly. That doesn't sound right at all. I've copied the wrong
No,
thing into
it's
the
city
wrong
event.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, city event. Oh, well, I've got something completely different here. So this one here, you're enjoying a glass. Oh, God, this is the Algox
Yeah.
party thing or
Yeah.
Inox
Yeah.
party thing. So we were
So we
basically,
were,
go
yeah, we
for
were
it.
hanging out in the tavern, having a nice quiet drink. And then this group of Inox come in, just rowdy and starting trouble. And then one of them like spits like on our drink, I think it is.
Yeah, I think he played.
Like, yeah, like in
He
our
hopped
drink,
it.
like, and then put it back in front of us. And so we had the option of like throw down and retaliate by pouring the ale over his head, or just quietly ordering another drink, just being like, well, I don't really want the saliva one anymore, so I guess I'll just replace it.
What do you think most
Uh,
people would do in that situation?
100%
It's like
fight.
guarantee that happens.
That's not I mean, who's choosing just chill and buy another drink? I mean,
Me?
in real life, maybe. I'm just
Yeah,
saying, like,
that's
in
what I'm
the
talking
game.
about. That's what I'm talking about. In real
Oh,
life, I mean, obviously Inox aren't in real life, and I'm sorry to burst everyone's bubble, but they're not real. But yeah, if a group of big, I don't know, big muscular dudes, you're minding your own business, you're having dinner with the wife, it's a lovely night, and he comes over and they spits in your APL? No, what is it? IPL. You've got little pale ale going on.
in your craft beer.
IPA. Yeah, in your craft beer. And then they walk back and they're all laughing and giggling. What do you do?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose you like smash a glass and just like threaten them, right?
No, you
That's.
don't.
Oh, is that not the standard response?
I don't know. Like, I would just sit there awkwardly and be like, wow, they just really showed me. I don't know what I did, but I guess I'm ordering another drink and I'm probably going to sit somewhere else or go to a different establishment.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, cool. Well, I mean, that wasn't an option. It wasn't
No.
find another tavern to go to. But we did choose to like, one up them and tip the drink on the dude's head.
Yeah.
And everyone really enjoyed that. The crowd went wild. We gained experience and reputation.
How did that not
If
result in a bar fight? I don't get it.
Because we showed dominance. They tried to like, intimidate us, and we next leveled them.
Yeah, okay. True, very
And
true. We
so,
did.
mm, luckily, because if we had chosen the other option to just like do our own thing and not do anything, we would have lost a tick.
Yeah, which is
That's
huge,
brutal,
especially on new characters. Like,
especially on new
really
characters.
bad.
Hmm.
But the positive was we got 5 experience each, and on new characters, that's really good. And reputation, which Gaz was like, what does reputation do?
Yeah, it's like, cool. That sounds good. I didn't even know it was on the chart. So,
But yeah, do you like that? It was
uh,
thematically fun.
yeah, like this is one of those ones that I like the theme of it. I like the storyline of it, and I actually quite like the outcomes, but the outcomes aren't tied necessarily to the actions, and that's where things get a bit tricky,
Hmm.
right? And I think that that's just one of the inherent uh things. I won't say problems because it's not bad or good about the Gloomhaven event system is that it's like you can't predict the answer. It's not deterministic in that way. in that if you choose X, Y is going to happen. If you choose, A, B is going to happen or something like that.
Is it fair to
So
say that they fleshed it out more in Frosthaven due to the tags on the actual characters? So if you had an Inox in that group, it would make sense that you probably could get away with that option.
I think a lot more. Yeah, I do. I feel in that instance you had a bit more tools to make a decision. And sometimes, but then again, this is rose tinted glasses because it's been a year or so since we've went through most of those. So I've probably forgotten all the horrible ones where you'd felt like it was still just flipping a coin. So yeah, look, as far as events goes, this was fine. The rewards, I do like more impactful rewards, right? Rather than like you gain 5 gold, you lose 5 gold, right? Which makes no difference. I
Mm,
like that. But I think like you still need to have an idea about like owning your decision. Because I still go back to one of the first ones we did in Crimson Scales, which is like, do you want to go left through the dark forest or right along the open path? And we chose the dark forest because I'm an idiot. But that we like I think lost XP or didn't. I don't know. We got something bad, and then the other side was like gain 10 XP and get something good. And it's like we had no information to go with other than like, well, the dark one might be bad because it's dark.
mm.
So that's the part that you go, well, if you're gonna tie significant rewards or interesting rewards, I'll say they don't have to be significant, but interesting rewards. You've got to give people some level of agency, not just like pick A or B, and
Yes.
then you have 50-50 chance of car or goat.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. With powerful, impactful rewards, there needs to be powerful, impactful penalties as well. So if we're always on the receiving end of those, though, like, I mean, just then it's 5 XP, which is, we like that. And then it's like
Mm,
lose a tick, right? And it's like,
mm,
whew, like it's pretty heavy. And it feels good. We're talking about this now because we picked the good option. Like we
mm.
got the good reward. But will we be sitting here? Because I'm pretty sure the second event was something similar, maybe. No, it wasn't.
Yeah, I think so. Oh no, no, the other was just nothing, right?
No, well,
Uh,
we'll jump into the other one, and then we can wrap up the both events if you want.
Mm.
Road event 22.
Yeah, this is the dude on the rope, yeah.
Yeah, while traveling through a cavernous area, we hear a desperate cry for help echoing from within a deep chasm, and peering over the edge, we spot a rope tied to a tree leading down into the darkness. A weary voice calls up, pleading for assistance. They're too exhausted to climb up on their own. Nearby, we also notice a bag, seamlessly left behind. So option A, we can haul up the stranded climber, and option B, cut the rope and take the bag. Why are so many people in peril out here?
It's dangerous world.
Yeah, well, I mean, without us, like, there's probably another 5 out there that's just waiting for us to draw a
Yeah,
card.
they're all just stuck in stasis, dying. I mean, yeah, it's interesting though that like compared to the others, this one was like had malice in it. So option A is help him. Option B isn't just steal his bag, which you can because he's on a rope, but it's actually cut his rope. So it's like, help, I'm down here. And I mean, he did say he's too tired to climb up. So that sounds like he could if he wanted to. He just didn't could be bothered. But let's ignore that part. They actually say murder the dude and take his money or help him, which is very different to just be like, take fortune and steal his money while you're there. Like, yeah, thief and murderer. There's a bit of a gap. So,
hmm
what did we choose to do, Daddy?
Look, we had a bit of a chat about it, and we decided to haul him up. Yeah. I think we are good people who, apparently, according to the bar fight, well, there wasn't one. Stand up for ourselves as well. We stand up for what we believe in, but what do you call it in D&D? What alignment?
I feel like we're chaotic good
Okay, that's
because
fine.
I think we do still embrace some form of randomness.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, we
Yeah.
hold him up, and he talked about, karma's gonna be good to you, my friend, and all of that. I got nothing for you, because in his bag, I mean, we found out later, if we did the other option, it was full of snacks and nothing else, which I think I'm okay with. I don't see why that's not a good thing. Like, snacks are hard to come by, but unfortunately, because we were short of breath after pulling him up, all 4 of us, we had to discard 1 card each for the upcoming scenario, which sucks.
Hmm.
But if you're 11 card, 11 hands, person like you and I, it's not as bad.
Yeah, you don't really care.
And then we add
It,
one, we add a city event to the deck, so karma might be a good thing, which is pretty exciting.
yeah, and that's I'll again, like, talking about rewards, I think this is a cool one where, okay, the immediate result is worse, right? Now we don't know until we check out event 33, but it could be better, right? Or it could be worse. Like, who knows? Like, if rescuing this dude means that, I don't know, he becomes some form of like leech and just steals all our money, then that's bad. But yeah, I'm interested to see how that goes and how that plays out.
I'm calling it right
But
now, event 33, because it's a city event. He's in the well and he's hanging by a rope, and it's just following this guy around the world, rescuing him from his rope adventures.
yeah, I think this is a type of event as well that was improved by, or the reward from this anyway, was improved by the calendar section event
Mm,
system in Frosthaven. Um, now, whether this type of one would have been a you randomly encounter him in an event deck or not, there were some that were like, "Hey, put this in," and I think that helped drive things along because, especially if we're going to get a reward next time we meet him, then making sure that actually comes up is, I think, a net positive for the game and the experience. It's like, did a good thing, got a bad result, but you do get a good reward. So it's like one step back, two steps forward type thing. But making sure it comes out because we technically could never see this reward,
yes,
right?
it's
There's
true.
a chance that we just never draw it, which means that it's not so much like, oh, you missed out on something really cool, but it's like that experience of making the decision became irrelevant.
Mm,
So I like the idea that it's seeded in some capacity to come up at some point. So yeah.
yeah. All right. Moving on to scenario 5. So this is Blood of the Oozes. Now we started, I think we did scenario 4 quite a while back, and it involved going around and healing the pox, which was the new negative condition toxic from a bunch of guards, and killing all of these toxic imps and blood oozes and I think flaming drakes quite a long time ago. And this is the continuation of that. So I went a little previously on because I needed some help in working out how this happened. So I'm doing your work for you, Dwarf. Previously on, when we finished a request from Salandra, an elderly man started complaining about the pox that the guards brought through the gates of Gloomhaven. So we followed the steps of where the man came from and discovered a bunch of guards suffering from the pox. We kicked a few oozes and slapped a few imps and healed them. Healed the guards, not the imps. And then we were told that there is a creature threatening Gloomhaven's water supply. So we need to quickly, and by quickly I mean retire a few characters and punch a few wolves and slowly make our way towards the source of the pox. So with the city guards succumbing to a horrific infection, we pressed forward cautiously, ever watchful of the source of this plague. It didn't take long to find something amiss. Just beyond the gates, a usually quiet alley was anything but. Flooded and swarming with imps and demons, the path ahead was blocked. Whether they were connected to the plague or simply in our way, one thing was clear: this was a fight we couldn't avoid. Scenario goal. When this gelatinous giant is dead at the end of that round, read a thing. Now, this was a scenario that you wanted to choose because you wanted a bit of closure with one of the many branches so that we don't go too like Skyrim side questy, and allows us to wrap up some of the endings, because usually the end of chains will result in good rewards, whether it be a
Hmm.
bunch of XP and all that kind of stuff. And if we don't close some of these things, yeah, we don't really get to take advantage of that.
100%. I think it's good to knock off some of these, especially considering, like, when you said the scenario at the start, I didn't realize 5. It feels like we've been playing for a while now, but we're 5 scenarios in. Like, I know that's not how it works, and we did do trial TOA like in the middle of that, which was about 5 scenarios or so. So it's not. I know why we're still at 5, but yeah, it'd be good to clear off because there's only one more after at the end of this chain,
Yeah,
right?
it's a
This is
pretty
yeah,
short
yeah.
chain, from what I
Yeah,
understand.
and I like that because I think that I mean, I'm sure that toxic and etc. comes up at other random parts of this, but this does seem to be the introduction of toxic, right? Like, we're gonna
Yeah,
put it in all 3 scenarios so that you know what it is. So later on, when a boss or, I don't know, toxic imp or something pops up, you're not like, whoa, what's this new thing? It's like, yeah, you've dealt with it a fair chunk.
true.
Uh, so I feel like there's probably one of these for rupture as well,
Yeah, it's
but
yeah. I haven't thought of
don't
that.
know.
There might be. the new conditions are tied into it, because we still haven't seen like dodge and things like that, which could be tied to characters
Mm.
less than monsters. But yeah, you got a good point there. And this line also has toxic imps, blood oozes, and flaming drakes, and they're all three like reskins of existing monsters. So you get all three in the chain, which is pretty cool.
Well,
It's
because there'd be a little bit of a waste of creating new reskinned monsters if they were only in 3 scenarios, right?
I mean, yeah,
Like, you
but
wouldn't do that. That makes no sense.
no, like I have absolutely no idea. I agree with you, but at the
Then
same
do
time, I'm
I.
like, I hope they're elsewhere. But I mean, maybe because there's a lot of monsters. They've taken a whole bunch from Gloomhaven. I don't know if they've taken from Jaws. They may have, not from Frosthaven, but then Crimson Skulls has their own, like the alligators that we saw and
Mm.
things like that. So don't know how much they've reused. The map is made up of 2 rooms separated by a single door, which is amusing because I actually had Bastion as one of my options. Yeah, and I was like, no, no, do not want. Everyone gets toxic as a scenario effect, which is cool because that also links to another battle goal that you happen to have. I forgot the name of it. Maybe not ritualist, but it was about removing conditions. So that was
Mhm.
really good. And
Which
you put an emphasis on making sure we didn't pick our battle goals until we had seen pretty much everything from the road event, city event, and also the scenario itself, which
Yeah, I feel
which
I willed
worked
that
out.
battle goal into existence as one of the 12 that we get to choose from, right?
Yes. The other thing we had in here was earth demons, right? Which is really
Mm.
cool. So we had fire. You get fire from the flaming drakes. You get earth from the earth demons. You get everything you want. You have
Mm.
like, did you enjoy having unlimited fire and grass?
I did not have unlimited fire and grass. Like, it's just I think we didn't have any flaming drakes until the second main
Mm.
room, and they die pretty quickly because we wanted to kill them because they absolutely slap.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like maybe the Earth Demons created grass once just before they died, and just before we were about to like long rest. So
I feel
yeah,
like they
I
kept
I
playing
also
the.
haven't really taken a lot of cards to make use of elements because I find it really tricky at the moment to juggle them and fit them into my what I'm doing.
I mean, one of your staples is burning stingers, right?
Well, no, because I never have fire up.
You still use it.
Yeah, but there's no fire up. Like I use it. Yeah, I do sometimes, but now I've started using it to move because it's a move 3.
It
So,
makes fire.
and I don't really want to flip my AMD. Like flipping my AMD for 1 damage basically means I'm just going to do a bunch of zeros because I'm going to pull -1s or misses. So I need the fire to ensure I get that 1 pure damage through. So,
Yeah. The other thing that we discussed at the beginning of this was Mark's PQ, because we found out in the FAQ that toxic imps, he needs to kill forest imps, black imps, and oozes. And because when we were playing this original scenario in scenario 4, it said toxic imps and blood oozes and flaming drakes. And it was like, oh, they're, different name. But the FAQ says, no, they definitely do count.
mm.
And he was very quick to say, well, he would have retired a while back. So it's very interesting. And we basically made a call and said, well, maybe you can retire now. And then we made another call after it and said, you can decide. If you want to, like, you've got till next scenario. I think he's going to play out the chain helm into the next scenario, but he's definitely retiring then.
Is he?
I think so.
Okay, cool. Well, that'll be fun then. So this will be the last scenario of the chain helm.
Yeah. Next
Which is
week's one.
probably about right anyway, because I think he's level 7 now. I think he's seen most of it, or did he just get
We're
his?
17 in now, 17 scenarios in.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. So yeah, so it's like above average, but he's been enjoying it. So
That's true. Now, how did you prep going into this scenario, right? Because we've obviously talked about diaries and all that kind of stuff. What have you kind of concentrated on when it came to, well, let's just talk about this actual scenario and what you did in it.
yeah, well, my rough plan going into this one, because as I said, if anyone who's listened last week, feel I've gone backwards with my understanding about how to play this character effectively. Was I needed to focus more on having a more of a blend of assisting frontline role rather than being frontline, right? Like, not that I feel like we need to have a tank, but I think a lot of my abilities center around maybe helping other people mitigate and or deal damage via retaliate. And so if I can focus more on that, and then I can probably be more effective. And it which helps in a way considering we have 4 frontliners. So it means that if I can't be on the front line either due to movement, initiative, or my HP, right? Someone else will be, and then I can choose cards based on that. So that was kind of my goal: do more healing, do more shielding, and do more like other people retaliate.
And it works. I mean, even that first room, it was a real tank and spank room. We just had Earth Demons and all of that. I went in. I went in to do my thing, and then you started doing all of your retaliate and those sort of supportive utility actions on me while still helping me with that, and it worked a treat. I think we had retaliate 5, like they had advantage because the imps gave them strengthened, but it was good that I said I'll go in and I'll stay there for a round, and once you knew that, you could work with that, right?
Mm.
So being able to work together and communicate, it worked a lot better, and I felt better for you because it looked like you felt like you were doing like you had more impact.
Yeah, I think so. It did feel good for my abilities to actually do something. Which is always fun. But it's an interesting. It's always the case with a character that has uh abilities that aren't just flip an AMD and then do a number, right? Like that's probably the most active ability you can have. Like, hey, I'm doing a thing and now I get to do all this thing stuff. I'm more like I move next to you and now in the future something will or won't happen to you. So that's
Mm,
putting shields on, or it's healing people, or giving people retaliate. So it's a lot more passive. So it still feels good to be able to do that. And I think that that first room was an example of it working quite well. And I think we got through that pretty well. I mean, none of us had to burn any cards, and there was some pretty. I think you got crit again, so that's also your curse now. And but then in the second room, it was a struggle. It was a struggle to do that as effectively. And so I think this is going to be the case of like me finding my rhythm to when people go in and are around, I can play around them, but there are other times where people aren't. They're just
yes.
standing milling around doing fuck all, right? And then I'm like, oh well, I also do fuck all, but I usually do fuck all next to you. And if you're not going in anywhere, then I mean, like, I guess I can also do nothing, but that wasn't the plan. So I kind of need to, and we need to work out where that rhythm is a little bit because
Yeah.
the stalling kind of thing, I think isn't good for me.
Yes.
But in saying that, like it's we also got to keep the scenario in mind. So
Completely.
yeah, but it's just again, I think it's just relearning how to do my stuff and then making that work with you guys.
Yeah, and it's working. Like it was positive. It felt positive and it felt like good. I'm just letting you know from my point of view.
Hmm.
Yeah, it definitely was. It was feeling good going in there. But everything you've just said, I can also see the limitations, and I can also see where we can make things even
Hmm.
better. Because obviously, you want someone to go in, and I want someone else to go in. Like as in you to go in, like someone. So if we go in together, like it kind of will potentially work. Stay tuned for next
Yeah,
week where we
it
talk
just
about how it didn't.
it didn't work at all. Yeah. So what about you though? How did you go into this scenario knowing what was in it and what you've known from the last scenario that two scenarios you've done? This is your third now, yeah?
No, this is the second.
Oh, the last one was that other one that we did. Oh, okay, of course. This is the
The one I
second.
learnt
So
nothing about.
the one you learned nothing about other than burn faster, right?
Yeah, which I did at
Mm,
this one. I played a
mm,
burn card, a very risky burn card. It was which I was probably going to use anyway for the sated, depending on how if I could actually reach anything. But getting that out early, having another turn of sated is learning the sated timings. It's learning when I do play a card that I know is going to make me sated, I'm prepping what my next turn is going to be. I don't normally do that. This character forces you to do that. So I have to look ahead. And
mm,
yeah, I've never been a big long-term strategy person. This is probably considered to me, honestly, this turn and the following turn is as long strategy as I can think, and that's where my limit sits. So that is working. But yeah, it was just playing a card, getting sated, and then going, okay, what am I going to do next round now that I am sated to maximize this bonus without necking myself? So that's probably been the biggest takeaway that I went in prepared into this. I also wanted to get a feel for how long it would take before I exhaust.
mm.
I wasn't trying to obviously exhaust ASAP and play everything immediately. But I mean, look, if you haven't already watched the playthrough, uh, and you'll get an idea of kind of where it all kind of went. I think we played about 17 rounds or something,
Mm.
and I was pretty much exhausted on that 17th, and I don't believe I burnt a card from to negate.
Oh, damage, yeah. Well, it felt like your rhythm was quite good. I mean, this is the thing, right? We it wasn't a everyone survives scenario, so you don't have to live to the end. You
Mm.
know, if you spend a good chunk of those middle turns melting enemies and using your cards to do that, as long as it's not like, oh, now we got the boss, and you're like, well, I'm dead. So that timing's not great.
Mm.
Uh, but yeah, I think it looked like you were doing quite well. And considering you did pull 3 misses, I feel like you still, if we had a damage meter, I feel like you would have been high on that damage meter.
Maybe.
And you
Like,
didn't get really pull any of your empower cards either. So like this is the thing, is that the ceiling for what you could have done if you had drawn better
ugh,
on
AMD,
your
AMD.
AMD, right? Like
Love a
is
vanilla
actually
AMD, guys.
yeah, well, I mean, yeah, that's the thing. You unvanilled it by putting some cool sprinkles in there, but then you didn't foresee the sprinkles.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, that takes care of the diary section, so that's really handy. I didn't really think about that, but hey, it worked. It kind of flows in. Basically, now we have to go into room 2. So this is the boss. I'll just explain how the boss works if you didn't quite catch it in the playthrough, or if you're in your car and you've not seen the playthrough. The gelatinous ooze. All right, it's got 44 health. At our scenario difficulty, I think we were playing on +0, so we were playing on scenario level 2. It's got 44 health and it sits in the middle of this giant ass room, and there's 4 piles of puddles. Now, this ooze is the source of the pox, and it's sitting next to a fountain, and it's immune to damage, like pretty much all suffering damage, and it's also immune to all negative conditions. So it's one of those bosses, and I'm now expecting these pretty much with every boss fight we come across, some way to stop you from immediately going in there and bursting it down, which I'm all for, by the way. So you got 4 piles of 4 hex tiles, water tiles around the map, and then every other round you're gonna spawn a blood ooze. All right, just a regular. I think it's a normal blood ooze. No, it might be elite. Doesn't matter. It's just a blood ooze in the closest water tile to the boss. Whenever a blood ooze is killed, you remove one of those 4 water piles. And then once all 4 water tiles have been removed, the boss becomes vulnerable to damage and conditions and no longer uses the boss deck because it's got a boss special 1 and boss special 2 deck. But it then switches into the regular blood ooze deck. So that gives you a rough idea of how that all kind of works. Boss special 1 is basically it just does a move 1, and then it makes all of the blood oozes on the board. Remember, oozes are oozes; they can multiply. They all perform an attack against one adjacent target. So can be scary if the oozes get out of control. Boss special 2, the boss attacks everything within range 3, and then all oozes will suffer damage. So the normals will suffer 1, the elites will suffer 2, and then the boss's current and max health increases by the amount of damage all of the oozes just suffered. Right? Sorry, I was just getting all
No,
that
no,
out.
no,
I'm
no.
just trying to
Yeah,
think. That's everything, right?
that's everything. Yeah. So oozes spawn every other turn. The boss has a couple of specials. One makes them attack, and the other one sucks their life force out of it and increases their HP. Now, remembering that in this phase we can't damage it, so this whole you need to go through and kill these oozes to get rid of the 4 puddles, so you
Yep.
can move to the next phase. Is a you can't affect the boss. So the
And
more the
there's
boss
and there's
sucks up
flaming
its
imps in
HP,
there. There's flaming imps in
yeah,
there, sorry, and earth demons. I forgot to mention those. So there are other
flaming
mobs
drakes.
in there to hurt. Flaming drakes. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 exactly. Yeah, so yeah, there was a bunch of stuff to do, but like essentially, it's like we got to kill these blood oozes so that we can get to the boss. But the boss is, in theory, sucking the life force out of the other blood oozes to increase its HP for when you fight it. It's going to be tougher.
Yeah, which makes it a massive timer potentially if it gets a little out of control. And the Blood Ooze deck have things like invis to stall, and then
Mm.
splits, and all that kind of stuff. And with the flaming drakes, I got booked by them on my vortex, so they can be an absolute nightmare if you know don't take care
They
of
hit
those.
so hard.
They do.
They like we're on +2, right? Which did have a discussion at the start of whether we should bump it
We're
up
not
or
on
not.
+2, +0, which
Oh,
equals
play
2.
plus
Yeah.
zero. We're on difficulty 2. Yeah, +0. Sorry. And even still, I'm pretty sure the first attack that they drew, which I don't think they could hit anyone because they were like halfway at the back of the room, and we were ages away, was like targeting 2, attack 6. The
I
elite, I think
didn't
it was elite.
notice. Is it?
I was just like, yeah, something like that.
But
Like
they didn't move.
I remember it was quite big, and I just thought Flaming Drake. Here we go. It was the so if I'm looking at the little card, it would be them on 2, right? Because that's level 2.
Yes.
Yeah, so
Yep.
their attack is a normal is 3 and elite is 5.
Yeah.
Their
Okay.
base attack. So I think the multi-target attack that they did here, which is attack +1,
Oof.
range -1, targeting 2. So yes, the elite was hitting for 6. Now they don't move. So I mean, this is the whole thing, right? Like it's not. I'm not saying like, oh, they're OP, but if that's within range and hitting 2 people for 6 at our level, I mean, for all of our level bar mark, you know, that's a hard hit for
Yeah.
a monster that's like difficulty level 2. So the when you were like, I gotta kill them because they booked me the last time we fought. It wasn't one of those like, you're just overreacting. You're just misremembering. It's like literally the first card they pulled up was like, yeah, if we're anywhere near these and they're alive, we're gonna get cooked.
Yeah.
Like, absolutely. So,
Yeah. Horrible. And they're definitely a priority target, and I love the fact that they are.
mm,
I love a scary mob when you see them and you're like, you have to deal with them. So on the right, you got Earth Demons, and it's like, eh, so
bin.
it's fine. And then you could go down and deal with the things. And ultimately, what was happening is once the Drakes were dead, we were just waiting, and the Earth Demons as well. We were just waiting for the rounds where it would spawn, kill the ooze, kill the ooze that spawns, remove a pool, and just do that
Mm.
multiple times. Which was fine. It was fine. I feel like there were moments where, and this maybe come down to our party composition because you don't do a crap load of damage. Mark has to, utilize a lot of his traps and all of that to do things. Phil kind of needs to be in a position, and he was kind of dealing with the Earth Demons originally, so we're spread out a little bit, but it worked out. If we were all 4 burst damage, whatever, and as soon as the ooze spawns and one person one shots it or 2 people do, the other 2 are just sitting there doing nothing, right? It becomes
Mm.
like maybe I'll go pick up some coins or I'll go and loot the chests or something like that. Uh,
Yeah. Well, I'll talk about it more in final thoughts.
Sounds good. All right, talking points. Just very quickly, I've got a couple of highlighted things. As I alluded to at the beginning of the pod, my AMD was very, very questionable. And I think you highlighted something that I did want to talk about, which was Empower, right? It's unique to me. I ended up putting, I think, 4 in there. I also blessed. So I had 2 blessed cards from town, and I had one of the special one, the rolling muddle strengthen, and I got some of those out. But yeah, there was one point where I was showing you, and I said, it has to be better. And it was like I had my -2, my -1, -1, +0, +0. And that's everything that was in my discard pile. And then we topped it off with a really lovely null. And then it was like, cool, now I get to shuffle all of that back in there and do that again, right? Which is crap. But yeah, I don't get to see many of the empowers, even though I felt like I was putting about 4 or 5 in there. I just feel like statistically I should have seen at least one more. That is all.
Well, I think you did at one stage. You did see one, but you rolled into a miss.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, well, you
Yep.
finally saw one and then rolled into like, oh, good. How
Yep.
good.
Which actually ties into my next talking point: XP, greed, karma. So there's one point where I was playing the top of Fatal Frenzy, which is 2 attack 3s. But if I'm sated, sorry, it's 1 attack 3. But if I'm sated, I can perform another separate instance of attack 3 that provides me with XP. And I think there was one ooze with, I don't know, 2 health left or something after everyone else was dealing damage to it or after retaliate damage. And I was flying over to greet this ooze, and I had to make the decision: do I want to attack him, use Fatal Frenzy? And if I hit him with the top, I may kill him, and then I can't hit him the second time to get the XP. And I really wanted the XP, and I wanted to take advantage because I was sated and yada,
Mm.
yada, yada. So I made the bold call to forego the top attack, and just do the second attack, which of course was the rolling empower into a miss. And therefore the ooze was still alive, and I mean, I got my XP, but oh my god,
I
it
think it
was.
did something bad as well. It wasn't just like you miss. I think it was doing like 2 attacks and all that kind of like it wasn't game changing bad, but it wasn't good. It was very, very avoidable.
Yes, it was very avoidable, but this is what happens when you get greedy. And I'm learning that I think the AMD is not going to be as kind for me, so I may need to take advantage of the double hits and the times I have advantage, and the weapon that allows me to have advantage on things with conditions, and all of that sweet stuff. I need to listen to what my character is telling me.
I mean, you have so many sources of advantage, so many at the moment, and you don't even have that much stuff. Like you've
Yep.
got multiple ability cards that give you advantage. You have an item that gives you advantage on 3 attacks. Like, yeah, you definitely
I just need more advantage.
that's it.
We'll get to that when we talk about the orbs, the items. Well, I gave that away. The other talking point I have was the boss for the first time that I can ever remember was probably about 7 or 8 rounds until it finally pulled boss special 2,
Mm,
which was really bizarre. And that's the one that does an attack 3. Now, I may be exaggerating with how many rounds it was, but it felt like boss special 1 into the default whatever attacks it was doing into more boss special 1s. It was nuts.
yep,
And boss special 2 is the one that allows it to damage the oozes to increase its max health. So its health barely moved. I think it topped out at 50 or something like
thereabouts, yeah.
that.
I think it only got 1 turn, maybe I'm gonna say 1 turn of actually sucking life into it. Maybe it got a second one at the end, which again was negligible. But yeah, it pulled a surprisingly low amount of boss special 2s, and boss special 2 is the quick one. So in most of the cases, if there had been a blood ooze alive, and it had pulled special 2, it definitely would have got off its suck health thing before we could kill the blood ooze, even though we were dealing with them really quickly. So yeah, I mean,
But
yeah,
we
it
would
was
also be in
bizarre.
more peril as well because it would be hitting all of us or everything within range 3. So, I mean, it's not
That's
crazy amount
true.
of damage, but it's ticking, right? If
Yeah,
it
yeah,
spammed it the way it does traditionally, we would have been like, oh my God, again. All right, Phil. All right, Gaz, and be rolling, hits over and over again. It would have sucked.
yeah.
Does
That's a
this
good point
does
as
this
well.
reverse everything though? Like from every boss when we complain about boss special 2, have we now just had the opposite, which has equaled everything out?
Well, not everything. It's equaled it like at once. So I think we're still in boss special 2 deficit here, or whatever way that would work.
uh All right. So yes, we burst down the boss. It was fairly good once we cleared all 4 puddles, and Mark, got this huge thing off with his merciless beatdown and all these items. You grab a chest, which was a stone item, random stone item, which we'll go into a little bit later.
Hmm.
And yeah, we basically finish off the imp.
Yep.
Now, before I jump into thoughts, I have questions that I've written here, and I want to see. Let's see. Okay. If the boss had boss special 2 once or twice, and there were blood oozes to take advantage of, thus raising its max health somewhere between 4 to 8 for a total of, let's say, 60 on top of what, the 50. We hit 50, but it went to about 60.
Mm.
Would we have potentially wiped?
No, not at all.
Because I was out, Mark was about to be out, and you don't do any damage.
Yeah, that's a good point. I was a little bit worried when I think the boss maybe was going into its second round of non-immunity, so we were doing damage, and you were like, "This is my last turn,"
Yeah.
and Mark's like, "I'm low," and feels like, "Yeah, I'm low." I'm like, "What have you guys been doing? Like, we're not taking any damage. How has everyone run out of cards?" Like, so potentially, like, if it had I mean, we were in there was a fear that we were going to kill it before I could get the chest,
Yeah.
right? So, it was on about 30 HP, and I was just like, I can't really do much here. I'm gonna go get the chest. I'll do a move 4, and I'm within 3 of it, so I could have got it the next turn. And then it almost died. There was a chance that when Phil was flipping his card, he could have killed it, until we worked out shield and blah blah blah. So, that dropped really quickly. Add another 30 life onto it? Yeah, I think so. Because then the big burn cards that everyone played to do that kind of combo and drop, like Phil's as a burn, Mark's as a burn, another couple of turns, some other bad luck. It
Because I did
also
I
can.
did an attack 5 that was also a burn. That's what was going to lead to my exhaustion, but we had to go big, and I pulled a
Mm,
crit on that to make it 10. So
yeah. But the other thing as well that could have been bad is because it started using the Blood Ooze deck, it can split.
mm,
So, right, I think the objective is only to kill it. But if it had done a couple of turns or even pulled its invis, right?
mm.
So yeah, there is a world in which if it had another 20 or 30 HP, then we could have wiped. But I feel like we had it pretty under control, but we did get kind of lucky at the end.
Yeah, okay. Earth demons, are they still the demon kings of the bin?
Yeah, I think so. Look, they were the right ones to have in there. They were damage sponges. They do have the potential to immobilize. I was actually thinking about this when you were explaining the second room a bit and the positioning of the monsters. I feel like the Earth demons needed to be more in your face. They needed to be closer to the door so that you had to fight them
Mm.
immediately, or they block you and allow the flame demons to get ahead, which then create a problem, which means the ooze thing just keeps spawning oozes. Like that, maybe because we just basically walked past them, right? And the only reason that me and Phil fought them was because we didn't move past them as quickly.
Yeah. I see what you mean. I'm now just changing the dynamic of the party and saying, okay, now we have like 3 ranged and 1 melee. You know, that would be an advantage for us because if they come there, I mean, yeah, we're still spending cards to blow them up, but we can probably do it relatively quickly. Whereas
Mm.
if they're in that awkward spot of there, I mean, they literally held us at bay. As we didn't go in as soon as we opened the door. We had a whole round of not going in.
But that wasn't because they were there. Well, that wasn't because of them, right? So this is what I mean. We tend to do this thing where we open doors. Well, we open at the moment. Mark's playing around traps, so we open doors and he puts traps down, and then like we are in this who's going in, etc., etc. And if we go in too far, we pull the aggro away, and the trap doesn't. So we have this weird turn or two thing that happens when we open a door. But yeah, you're right. Like I guess maybe different party composition could make a difference. I just felt like to answer your question, yeah, they're not only are they still in the bin, but in that particular room, they were even irrelevant, right?
That's
We only
fair.
fought them because they were there when we ran out of other things to fight.
That's true. That's 100% true. I
So
literally went back there to deal with it because I
nothing
needed
was on the
something to
board.
hit, right?
Hmm.
You need XP. We're 2 scenarios in with the toxic condition. What are your thoughts around toxic?
I think it's super non-impactful because a lot of our characters that we've got don't generate shields, and the only things that other way that it impacts is the toxic imps doing the attacks that if you have toxic, they get I think +2 or whatever it is to their attack.
Okay. What if it
So
worked in a similar way to poison in
hmm?
that it impacted healing? Because right now you can heal kind of it off.
Mm.
What if it blocked the
Um,
actual heal?
yeah, maybe. I mean, look, I don't dislike it. I think that it's kind of like Impair. Like, remember we saw Impair, we're like, well,
Yeah.
that's like, who cares about Impair? And then we got
Impair's bad
Impaired, and we're
until it's
like,
until
well,
you need it. Yeah.
yeah, correct. Well, yeah, I think we got Impair at one stage, maybe in like scenario 3, because the scouts maybe have it or something like that.
Mm,
And we're like, whatever. But we also had no items. And then later in the campaign, I remember that something did Impair, and we're like, oh, I'm just going to use my Oh no,
yeah.
impair. And then from that point on, I feel like because we had so many items and there were things that were impairing us, like chain impairing us, you were like, wow, this is actually really bad. So I feel like that's toxic. Like toxic's probably like it's fine unless it's really bad and when like irrelative and sorry, relevant. And when it is relevant, you're like, oh my God, this messes up what I want to do.
It would be interesting if toxic was a negative condition that we could apply. Because if they can't gain
Mm.
shield, that would be pretty bonkers on a lot of things. I mean, shield's one of the biggest things in for monsters, right? It's one of the only things that can really help them absorb a lot of damage and become
Yeah.
annoying for us to work around. But
Yeah, that's
it'd be a
interesting.
bit busted, right? If we had control over it.
Yeah, and I'm wondering now if we messed up any of the instances of our items when we like me, Mark, Phil maybe have I mean, it might be just me, Mark have items like chest items that you gain shield.
I'm almost certain you guys were fine because you guys were healing them off almost as soon as you were getting them.
Mm,
Like no one
yeah.
really had them hang around, and everyone's got their own way of dealing with it. And then of course you had bees and things like
Mm.
that. So
That's true. So maybe that's where that's a bit more relevant is if you don't have a good source of like little tick healing and you have toxic, then it just and you haven't used your items, then you're like, oh well, cool. Now my items are triggering and they're not doing anything. So it's kind of like a mini impair, but just for defensive items.
mm,
So yeah, I like it. I think it's a cool extra condition that's not super brutal, but I think it has its niche purpose. Yeah.
yeah, okay. Finally, would we have done this on +1 like we might have done at the very beginning when we were oohing and ahhing over the scenario level?
Yeah, I think we still would have been fine as long as people were played carefully. I don't think anyone was super reckless. There probably is some instances where, I mean, you getting crit early maybe makes you lose cards if their damage is +1, because that
Mm,
means it's +2. And
mm.
I think that kind of maybe. So there are some weird instances where some good or bad luck could have shifted things slightly. But I think we would have been fine.
Yep.
I think we would have been fine. But it would have been a lot closer though, and I think it was a good call not to do it on +1, just purely because we didn't the unknown. Which
Always
will probably
fair.
go into my thoughts, which I'll talk about in a minute about.
Well, we're going in there now.
Okay, so I thought this was really cool. It was a cool scenario, and I love the theme of the ooze. I love oozes in Dungeons and Dragons in the D&D setting. I think they're really cool. They're a really cool monster. I love the idea of them. They're very different, like the gelatinous cube and like the what are they called? I don't know. They're different colored oozes and stuff. I think they're awesome. And so oozes are one of the enemies in Gloomhaven Frosthaven that I also think are really cool, and they create a weird dynamic. You can get overwhelmed. You can do these things. This boss and the theme and the mechanics behind it, I also thought were a really cool way of having this boss. Like you said, like you can't you can't do damage until this happens. But also it's going to increase in HP, and I like that idea of it like absorbing some of the oozes around it. The problem, I think, and this is that the nature of oozes and how they work is very RNG based, right? As in, when you have an ooze, sometimes they don't move, right? Or sometimes they never split, or sometimes they only split. And so you
Mm,
get this weird, the weird extremes of RNG for oozes can be like a very different experience depending on which way it goes.
yeah.
So I mean, and you can say that for almost any monster that summons. Any
Yes.
monster that summons, there's a massive gap between the experience if they summon all the time versus never, right?
Mm,
Because like what we ran into from the kind of down part of this, and this actually caused us to check the rules a couple of times, right? Because we're like, are we spawning the right amount of oozes here? Because you start and there's none because it's the boss and the two flaming drakes. And then each other round, so not that round that you open the door, but the next round, and then each other round after that, you spawn one in one of the water tiles. We were killing them really quickly because they only have what, like 11 health or something and one shield at our difficulty. And because they didn't really get a chance to split, like I think one of them split once, then it meant that they didn't really overwhelm us,
no.
which meant that once we killed the drakes, which don't have they do hit hard, but they don't have a lot of HP. We avoided the earth demons. It was really just stand next to the boss who didn't hit that hard mostly, and kill this one ooze that would appear every other turn.
Mm,
So I think what the like it was again, it was good and I liked it, but what would be cooler is if there was a way of making that more consistent. So uh you don't want it to get out of control, because if it gets out of control, then the boss
mm,
ooze would end up with like 100 HP, and that'd be wild, right?
yes.
Uh, but in saying that, you kind of want it to use that core mechanic a bit more often. So whether it was something like you remove boss special 2 to take the HP off them, and you just make it anytime you spawn that ooze on the water tile, it just gains it loses 2 HP and the thing gains 2 HP or something like that. Or maybe you have both of them. I don't know. Something that just triggers that mechanic, because it's possible, as we almost experienced, to kill them quickly or it never draw boss special too. So you never get to interact with that cool mechanic of it getting more powerful while you kill everything around it. And
Mm,
that for me, that just is too swingy. In that I think it's a cool design piece. It just has the ability to just not really come into play.
yeah.
So yeah, not a problem at all. And I think that whoever designed this scenario and this boss, like knocked it out of the park basically on all accounts. Especially considering the tools they have available. So
Yes.
without creating a new monster that has a new AMD and blah blah blah. Which actually they did, because they took oozes and made blood oozes. But
Yeah, yeah,
there's
yeah.
still,
I
yeah, you know what
100%
I
get what you mean.
you know what I mean, right? Without making monsters unique just for this boss. But yeah, no, I thought it was amazing. I thought it was really, really cool and very surprising as a random scenario. Like not random side scenario, but like just a scenario we're doing, and it's like, hey, have this mini boss.
Well,
That
that's what I was gonna bring up just after this bit. Mind you, my thoughts on this, I didn't know how to put my thoughts into words. You did a phenomenal job of basically saying what I was feeling. So I will just jump on the back of that. It was actually because I couldn't quite put my finger on what it was, but there's something just felt a little disjointed or something, and it might have been like the tempo and the timing of what you would. But I couldn't work out how to say that, and you just said it exactly how I felt. So yes, I agree with you. I'm 100% on that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, yeah, that's it. So I think we had fun playing the
Mm,
scenario. I think it was a cool boss. It's probably one of the ones I'll remember as well, which is
mm,
weird, which is why it resonates so well is that remember the slime boss that Summers did in Frosthaven.
yeah,
Like we remember that from like that was a grind, okay? And it's memorable because we didn't fail it. If we had failed it, I would hate that scenario, right? And I think that scenario tried to do a similar thing to this one in the essence of it. Like capture the idea of a giant ooze and that giant ooze having multiple little oozes.
yep.
And they both did it in different ways. This did it in a way that was less, no pun intended, less toxic for the experience, right? It didn't feel like this one was making you grind through it.
No,
Um, and I love actually the idea that as soon as its immunity went down, it's just a big blood ooze.
yeah,
Because I guess the thing now I'm just thinking is it has then had the ability to split, which I think we mentioned before. But if it's got a lot of HP and starts splitting, and blood oozes don't really lose HP when they split, I don't think. Um,
not from memory. No,
Actually, I think it did. It split once because Mark read it and was like, "Oh my god," because he thought it was
I think it
like
just said
it.
spawn it at with 4 health. I think it was just a flat number.
Yeah,
Yeah,
not at like its health minus 4.
no, should
So,
be ridiculous.
yeah, anyway, that was a kind of a bit ranty, but I think, it was
No,
ranty from an
it was
excitement
good.
perspective. I really enjoyed it, and I think I'll remember this from a theme perspective for a while.
I agree. And what's interesting is this is a three-parter. This was the middle one because
Mm.
we've got one more after this, where unfortunately, apparently, we're too late or something, and it's already in Gloomhaven's water supply. So yeah, is this going to be like the trio that I think we did in? There was one of the trios we did in Frosthaven where it was like get in. Second scenario was a boss one, and then the third one was get out. Now, obviously, this is probably not going to be like that because we're going to be in Frosthaven and we're going to be trying to save. I don't know. Do we become plumbers? Like, I don't.
Maybe. Yeah, you're right, actually. Like this is an interesting twist. And if I think about the first scenario, I don't remember what I said at the time, but I think in hindsight, I actually quite liked the idea of some of the mechanics they had around saving people and the way that you save people
Mm,
and the fact that they weren't on the map, so it wasn't a race to not let them die. It was more you have to save them, but if you do it quickly, then they can actually help you a little bit. Like that's a cool extra pick your poison of how you want to do it. Again, I keep making these bad toxic poison puns, but completely by accident. But yeah. So yeah, I'd be interested to have a look if this was just the normal designer or if this was like a hey, one person wanted to do a few scenarios and
mm,
this was their chain because it does have an interesting feel to it so far.
it's true. It's true.
Hopefully, we haven't just hyped up the last scenario now. Now
Oh,
it's
we
dog
have.
shit.
We
Oh,
100%
okay.
have. But at the
Good.
same time, we've
Good.
already established that like the boss is down. So the next one's going to be a mundane kind of, all right, you need to fix 3 pipes and you need to carry, X amount of buckets to here and there. And I'm expecting that. My expectations aren't high. And I think that's a good
Yep.
thing because that means I can go
Okay.
in there, surprised, and yeah,
Yeah.
see what
So I've hyped
happens.
it up to be shit. Okay. To be a
Is that a
letdown.
pun?
We're we're, ex- we're expecting it to be a letdown, which is an interesting version of hype.
Yeah. Unless the ooze comes back and it's like a summer's ooze. Ha, you thought you got rid of me.
Yeah, that's true.
Would Ormi be okay?
I think so. I think we could probably protect him, and then he's going to be slow to get into the next room, and it's a big enough map.
Yeah, I agree. It's only bad if he somehow, like, based on the amount of time there and the time that we open the door, he makes his way over to Immune Ooze
Mm.
eventually and then just stays there the whole time trying to
Wow,
hit him while taking hits.
that's a
If a lot more Boss Special 2s came out.
Yeah, that's a good point actually. Or even Boss Special 1 was still an attack, so him and Ormi would just get locked in this duel where Ormi's fighting this invulnerable thing. So yeah, there's a world in which Ormi struggles, but I don't think it's the worst.
Oh dear, Ormi. All right, very quickly. amDirt Diaries. Bleeding Claw, I've got a couple of points here. Sated is a fun puzzle to work around. And I think, and this is me talking about which one, because which one I'm going to use for the Sated, to which one's going to give me the bonus, and then what two bonuses am I going to use afterwards. That's fun
Hmm.
puzzle. I have a lot of options, and I'm starting to look at the tops and bottoms of the cards. And when I have access to new ones, going, ooh, I'm not too sure. How would that replace, something else? Sorry. XP is insane. I mean, it's supposed to be when you're using burns, but holy crap, it's insane. I finished on 29. That is including the 8 bonus from the scenario, so 21 card XP.
That's
Um,
like 300% more than you were finishing on with the Vortex, right?
yep, pretty much. Like Vortex was starting to pick up once I got more and more used to it. So hopefully, when I get more and more used to this, it becomes 33. Looking at items to potentially start getting is something I'm also working towards because I don't have a chest and I don't have boots. So I've got some options there. So I guess I'll be playing around with what they are, but obviously they cost money, and we don't just look at lumber and hide and all that kind of stuff to make them. So it means I'm gonna have to loot more coins. But I'm fighting Phil on loot right now because he just likes looting. And are you saving for something, Phil? Maserati? We both have loot movement things, which is really cool. So yeah, we're both Roombas at the moment, which is awesome. Um, and then yeah, I got access to a milestone card. We talk about a milestone and level up cards at the end of the playthrough. So if you're interested in hearing our thoughts on our level up cards, we actually spend a fair bit of time on them there. So I'm not going to spend any time there. And then yeah, I guess just fleshing out my perks. I'm still got 2 to assign right now. I haven't picked them. I'm not too sure which ones I'm going to pick, but I will have to wait and see. I'm thinking about the minus ones, which add rupture, but I kind of want the one that whenever one of your abilities causes at least one enemy to gain rupture, I can perform a move one. So that's something that I'm kind of wanting to do. Also, the one that's the non AMD one, become sated each time you lose. Not that one. Once each scenario becomes sated after collecting your 5th loot token is really cool. Like now that I understand how good sated is, just getting a round of it without burning is pretty
Mm.
cool. I'm not really rating in power, so at least not until
Ooh.
I shrink my deck a little bit. I'd probably be a little bit more there, but I think you have to probably heavily invest in empower um, to get the most out of it. Maybe.
Yeah, that seems about right. I mean, I think you're right about the AMD. Like having uh, a rolling modifier come in, even though it's +1, feels a bit meh when you just pulling a 0 or a -1.
Mm,
So when you've got more things that you want to roll into, you're like, yeah, that's cool. Like I pulled that thing, but it just did +1 and push. That's probably going to be more impactful.
yeah, but at the moment, no, I'm having a good time. I thought that. I mean, we talked a fair bit of what I wanted to say when we were talking about the scenario. So I have really nothing else I wanted to add to it at the moment. Is there anything you want to cover with your beat?
No, I think I talked mostly about what I was doing. Playing a little bit more, not being in the firing line and just trying to juggle being in the firing line. I did try and play around with my colonies a bit more. I only took bees, which is the healing one, because there's just so many other cards that I wanted to bring, and I just can't. I still don't see the action economy working in the way that I want it to, like again using the top action. I do have the 2 tick non AMD perk, which is from the updated version, which basically just lets me place once per scenario, play a colony action from my discard pile, and then I'm basically treated as a beacon of a call of all the colonies I have active for that turn. Um, I I found I wanted to use that, but had the colony card in my hand. So it's not play it from anywhere, it's only discards. So I need to probably play around that a little bit more. And I guess it's weird though, because it means I can play it for the move 4. So there's probably a combination there where I can play it for the move, knowing it's in my discard, knowing that I can just drop it out at any stage when I'm doing that. So that could be even how I rest. Right?
Mm.
Because normally I've got a card that I'm gonna bring now, which is like anyone adjacent to a colony heals 2. And so I've been
Oh.
trying to cycle that on my last turn before I long rest. So I put bees out, then I play that. That's 3 heal. Then I long rest. That's a 4th.
Do you get that
That's
as
3
well?
more. Yeah, it's me as well. Yeah, so it's one of the only other ways I can heal myself. So yeah, I'm just trying to work out that little part. Like that's the next thing I'm trying to work out. How do I bring the colonies into it? Because I think the way that I played it with supporting you guys a little bit more on the front line worked, and I'm just gonna keep messing around with that.
Yeah, you still had a lot of those turns where you planned big retaliate turns and then the oozes decided to split instead and all of that. That's still happening, but obviously if you were getting it off every single time, everything would be dead. Like well and
Maybe,
truly with retaliate 5. So
maybe. What was annoying, I think, on one of the turns, and I pointed this out on the playthrough, was that I picked 2 cards to do a retaliate action. I think either I was going to retaliate or I was going to give retaliate to someone. And then I was like, okay, well, nothing's attacking, so I'll just switch it up and I'll look at the other half of both of those cards. And one of the cards, the other half was also retaliate, and the other one was like not something that I wanted it to be doing. So I'm like, good. 3 out of my 4 options of actions here are retaliate. So maybe that just means I need to go more slower burn on that stuff. Like, only pick 1 card with retaliate on it so that
yeah,
if it happens, I can switch it up and still do something. So I guess it's just learning the ebb and flow a little bit more.
but you still get
Um,
XP for doing that, right?
yeah, I think I healed someone or something like that. I can't remember what I did.
Yeah, but your retaliate cards, if you're retaliating knowing they're not going to hit, you're still going to generate an XP from doing those.
Oh, yeah, actually, that was right. Yeah, yeah, because Maddening Chatter, which is the top retaliate 3 on someone else, still gives me an XP. So I think I still
Exactly.
got 2
Yeah.
XP out of the turn. I just
Yeah.
didn't do anything.
That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah. So yeah, but all in all, you know,
Sounds
I
good.
think it's going all right. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right, topic of the week. Where are we at for time? Okay. So, topic of the week, we have items. All right. So, towards the end of our Frosthaven campaign, we did our hits and shits, which was choosing the item category and we rated our favorite 3 and our least favorite 3. And we did them individually and we compared notes and we had a bit of a discussion and it was a lot of fun. And, I think it was received quite well. And we were often told how wrong we were, which was really
Yeah.
cool. I really enjoyed that. That's half the fun of doing it. So, it's way too early to do a hits and shits segment, as we still have a lot of items to uncover. But I wanted to have a look at the Crimson Scales items we've unlocked so far and discuss our thoughts on them and how they would be used and who it could be good for and all of that kind of stuff. Now, just a side note, Crimson Scales uses the components from Gloomhaven, but while widely known community member and scenario developer, say is scenario dev because of Furious Factory. General
Okay.
CGO created a Crimson Scales shop rework that has catered items to be unlocked at each prosperity level to scale the experience in a more rewarding way. What this means is that in the rework, we don't have access to items like stamp pots and all of that right from the start. And you get different items at different prosperity levels. And, we love the idea of that. So we won't be going over any of the Gloomhaven or Jaws of the Lion items that are in this, right? Because
Mm.
some of those, well, most of those are in this. But this is purely on the items that we have found in Crimson Scales and its expansion, Trail of Ashes.
Cool.
Now, before I go into this, and I really wanted to dive into this, but I'm not too sure if we're going to have time to do it. Today, someone on Reddit posted a thread. I don't know if you saw this, but the thread was called Power in Haven Games: Why the Gloomhaven Item Shop Made You a Bad Player. An unhinged rant. And
Oh.
to summarize it, this person's arguing that Gloomhaven First Edition's items were too powerful, which led players to rely on them too much rather than learning the game's deeper strategic elements,
Hmm.
like monster abilities, damage mitigation, things like that. And as a result, some players could win scenarios while only utilizing a narrow set of mechanics, making them less skilled overall. They
Yep.
argue that the changes in Gloomhaven 2nd Edition were necessary to encourage players to engage with the game's core systems. The revised item balance and generally stronger level 1 character classes should promote a more varied and strategic approach to gameplay. While some players might resist these changes, particularly those who preferred the old item power level, this particular speaker believes that the new system will lead to a more diverse and enjoyable experience in the long run, provided players are willing to adapt. And it's cause a fair bit of discussion in there because, yeah, there's been a lot of people lately who probably, I haven't looked at the 2.0 items or anything like that, but I'm assuming that they've kind of gone down a little bit more of the Frosthaven path
Mm.
and there's, no invisibility cloak and Stampots are still going to be nerfed into the ground compared to when they came out in first edition, especially minor and major, right? And a lot of people are like, yeah, lol, easy. The game's easier. We play on the hardest difficulty. We use all these items, etc. But I just wanted your thoughts on kind of just that premise and this person's take. Do you
Uh,
agree?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, the items in Gloomhaven were busted as. That's why they nerfed them in erratas and then nerfed them further in like Frosthaven.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
exactly.
I don't even think that that's up for discussion. Isn't that just the truth?
I agree. I a million percent
Whether
agree.
that makes people bad or not is then the discussion point. Or not bad, but makes people yeah, which that's the discussion thing. I mean, the items were too powerful. I mean, yeah, I think you were saying like Stampots. I think in the original version, like normal
Two
Stampots did
cards.
2 cards and Greater did 3. Like
Mm,
that's wild. Getting 3 cards back from one item and then you had characters that I know that they were few and far between, but you had characters that were able to refresh items, like without spoilers for Gloomhaven, I guess. But
no, guys.
um, playing the quartermaster, because Stampots were so strong, it actually meant that some of the abilities that you had, like the ability to refresh items, weren't interesting because the best option was always just to get 2 cards back.
Yeah.
Right. So I definitely think that they do warp that. And like I remember specifically, and this is a really, really unique example, but when I was playing the Scoundrel on digital, I know the one of the cards that you have is basically like and again, I'll not talk about it specifically because it's spoilers, but one of the cards basically does an attack against everything adjacent to you and disarm, right? Which is amazing. Like that's really good. And it's a high level card, so it's supposed to be when I was playing, I was constantly just like turn one, move in amongst all the enemies and do a cool thing, disarm them all and do damage. Hit a power pod, sorry, a stamp pod, get that back, and just do it again the next turn. Like it was like it basically ignored everything. Now I know that's one really niche example, but I don't have to think about strategy because I'm just like, just do the same really powerful thing 2 turns in a row,
Yeah.
and then you can do it again if you want because you can have a normal and a greater stamp pod. Like so, I 100% agree, and that's just stamp pods, right?
Yeah, that's
I
one
think
item.
yeah, that's just one item in all of that. So I totally agree. I think that people had too much reliance, and it's probably where people struggle going into Frosthaven because
Oh,
items were
yes.
harder to get and also were heaps worse.
Well, how many times and like yeah, worse compared to Gloomhaven 2 1 edition, first edition.
Mm,
But yeah, I remember playing uh Frosthaven at the beginning with minimal items, and that's the whole party. And you all of a sudden, yeah, you have nothing but the tools in front of you, which happen to be the character's ability cards. That's it.
mm,
That's all you've got to work with. So you got to make it happen. That's what I loved about it. And when things start to get a little bit crazy, and then you start leaning into it, and this is where I mean, I've just picked up an item on a character that burns a lot of cards that lets me recover a burnt card that I played that round. Now, I'm going to play it for a bit, but if it's going to feel a little unhinged, I'm probably going to sell it. And I'm
mm.
being honest about that because that then doesn't feel as much fun. It's compared to playing it. And I don't want to say properly, but this is, you know what I mean? You know what I'm
Yeah.
trying to say?
No,
Um,
totally. And we had this conversation a lot with power pots in Frosthaven and the classes there where you were able to pop one plus other supporting items that are similar that is +1 damage to everything you do this turn and then just delete rooms. That just feels like that's not supposed to be the way it works.
mm,
And so it's almost just it's not breaking, but it's pushing these abilities into spaces that they probably weren't supposed to go into. And therefore, because you're doing that, you don't need to think about strategy anymore because it's all how do I funnel everything into this one ability that I've managed to make really do something it's probably not supposed to be doing. And
mm.
I feel like that was possible with a bunch of classes and a bunch of things in Frosthaven, but you probably had to work harder for it for a bit. I think in Gloomhaven it was pretty much you could do that with most characters because the same items were pretty good on most things that just wanted to do damage,
I think
right?
someone was saying in there that some items are a necessity for the character. like there are some items that are absolutely a necessity for a character, which I still don't believe, right? This is my opinion. I don't believe that
Mm,
they're absolutely vital. And one of them is move boots, like that add +1 to your movement because some of the maps are so large. So you need to get over there. But I'm a believer that that was built baked into the design of the characters, right?
mm.
They've all got movement cards, even though your you may have a 4 movement card that is garbage because you don't like the initiative and you don't like the top action. But why would you bring that when you can do all your other abilities? That's literally the opportunity cost of playing most of this game. That's why the loot system is what it is. I don't like the loot system because I don't want to have to spend a turn,
Mm.
doing a loot or picking up end of turn. It's like, wow, I struggle with movement. And there are scenarios that we play where I'm like, crap, this is an escape scenario. I will forego maybe 1 or 2 of my favorite cards or cards that I really loved using in favor of movement cards so I don't get caught out, right?
Mm.
It's not just a matter of, oh, I need to have move boots so that I can always move at +1 so I can always play with the same core cards forever. You need to adapt.
Yeah, I think so. I think, and the items I feel I really it's a tricky spot to get right because I think they need to land somewhere between being must take, which you don't want them, and like you're saying that there are items that are referred to as must take, and that can be because either they maximize and make something that the character does just like basically overtuned, or they fix a massive gap, right? In the character, like movement, for example. If they character doesn't have a lot of movement, or you don't want to take the movement cards, then you take this item and it fixes that problem. Okay. Versus them being useful and there being a little puzzle to figure out about how you can use them to maximize that. That's the whole thing, right? Like you don't want to rob people the ability to be able to get a combination of items and make themselves more powerful with the cards because that's a
Mm,
cool puzzle aspect to it. But that's so hard to balance over 20 odd characters and how many items and stuff like that and how many cards. So I think it just means that some leak out,
yep.
right? Um, but then on the flip side, there's also these weird items that are completely useless for every character other than one character, and there's like a few specific items, sorry, cards that they work with, and even those I think that are there, that should just be part of the character,
Yeah.
like something like that. So I don't know. It's a weird space, but I definitely think that it got better in Frosthaven.
And this is where our hits and shits lists when we had that. You're also up to the individual to actually see whether or not there's a way to utilize that item properly. You can always read an item and it'll say +1 to your attack, but only if you're ranged and doing with disadvantage. Well, this is garbage. By the way, I made that up. I don't know if that exists, right? But then someone will say, yeah, but this works really well with this, and you may not have seen that. The majority of people are
Mm,
going in there blind and just looking at the card and going, oh, the number's really small. I don't want that, right?
yeah.
That's why I love the hits and shits because you had people at CGO coming to me going, I can't believe you hated that, Daddy. Do you know how good that is on you? And I'm like, oh, damn. Yeah, you're right. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, and I think about playing like role playing games and stuff like that, and you get when you get random loot in when you're playing whatever your role playing game of choice is, let's say Dungeons and Dragons, right? And I remember, you get it, and people just slap it on everything. It's like playing Diablo. It's like you pick up an item that has when you're wearing all greys. And you pick up an item that's magic, and as you just chuck it on, it's like, yeah, cool, plus the light radius. Yeah, let's go. And I think this it that happens a little bit in the early stages of the Haven games because you are so item poor, right?
Yes.
But I think you very quickly get to the point where you're like, nah, I don't want to. And it would be cooler if some of these more niche items that didn't do amazing things, but you could keep and hold on to, and they would allow that power increase to happen rather
Mm,
than just, well, I got this and it's garbage and it's taking up a slot, so I'm going to sell it and just use that money to buy the OP item. That's
mm.
the problem. It's not, and I think that gap in Gloomhaven was massive. It's less massive in Frosthaven, although there are still some garbage items. But I don't think there's, every character has here are the 5 items you have to own. Otherwise, you're not like, performing at an 11 rather than, you know.
Which a lot of the times when that comes up, the 5 items also work with these other classes as well sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Anyway,
So interesting thread. I haven't read it, but I'll check it out.
yeah, it's good. Have a read. Anyway, let's go into a couple of the CS items that we've actually found. We're going to start off with lightwave boots, which is I don't have the numbers, but I'll just say lightwave boots.
Item number 17, I think.
Yeah, 17. We'll go with that. 40 gold during a move ability, add +2 move and jump. and it's tappable. Mark has this on his chained helm. He got it like, I don't know, scenario 1 or 2 from an event, I think. Something stupid like that. He has held it ever since, and these would have to be the most busted boots, I think, in the entire game.
Yeah, more or less. I'd agree with that. Like, they're not doing anything inherently broken. They're just way overtuned.
Well, they're combining two separate items to form one. If
Yeah,
you,
that's what I mean. So,
yeah,
like, I think, and sorry, just for clarity, like it's 17 on the Gloomhaven card thing, but it's item think 283 with what I'm looking at. Um, so the thing is with
oh,
this is that
sorry, that means card number, like from all of the Crimson Scales cards, I believe. So don't worry about that number down the bottom right.
oh, okay, so it
Yeah.
is just a number in the top left hand corner.
I don't see them on because I've pasted them in docs
Oh, okay, cool. Well, I
for
have
my
no
show
idea what
notes.
item it is then.
That's fine.
So having +2 move and having jump, neither of those two breaks the game. Having them both on one item also doesn't break the game, but it's more than they should be doing. That's all it is, right? Um, then that's yeah.
Is
But
there
I
a
don't know.
character these are good for, Gaz? Can you name a character they may be good for?
Any character that wants to move
Perfect. Nailed
at
it.
all in any of the scenarios that it
Correct.
plays through.
Yeah. Yeah. There is no bad character for this unless
Uh,
we haven't come across like a statue character that if they move they get hurt, or anyone with rupture
mhm.
maybe, but
And see where this needs to be is that these having, hey, during your move ability, add +2 move and jump, and then gain immobilized. That's a good item, right? That's an item that says, hey, this is overtuned for what it does, but there's a negative. So you go pick and choose. You might not be a character that ever wants to get immobilized. Maybe you're a character that really easily deals with it, right?
mm,
And so therefore that then becomes an interesting item. When do I use it? And blah, blah, blah. But I think just purely going like, let's just stack more pluses on there. Why not?
yeah.
Because again, it's kind of like going like, oh, well, here we go. Here's a potion. You can recover one item from your discard pile that's level 1, and you can heal 3. Well,
Yes.
what? That's just better. But if it also then said you gain poison and wound, then you'd be like, oh, okay. I mean, that's still better, but you are having to make a choice. It's not always better. You can't just use it whenever you want. Like it has some form of opportunity, like cost to play. So I think that that's probably a better space. But whatever, it's one item. Doesn't matter.
Let's go to our orbs. I think these are item 3, 9, and 10. They're the three that we currently have. And this is a new system right now, the orbs. They're bag items.
Hmm.
And Orb of Agility, basically, they all work the same. They all cost different, actually. Orb of Agility costs 15, Orb of Fortune is 30, and Orb of Despair is 30. They all work in the same way that you put a character token on them to then perform whatever it is. And when there's 3 on there, it is spent. So in
Hmm.
the case of Orb of Agility, during a move, you can put a token on there to add jump to your move. The Orb of Fortune is you may, when you're doing an attack, put a token on there to add advantage to that one attack. And then Orb of Despair is you can add a curse at the moment. And this is obviously a new system.
Hmm.
And I really like the system.
Hmm.
I like that when we found them, they were useful on the characters that found them. But since then, no one has bought them. But they could and could be tempted.
Hmm.
Because they're also, yeah, being a bag item also, it means that you're not like, you don't have to move boots. You now have another source of jump, which means you can buy another source of boots. Orb of Fortune means you don't have to buy the goggles, even though the goggles are really good. You can save your head slot for something else.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've bought Boots of Striding, so I've got +2 to my move. So if I then can also get the Orb of Jumping, whatever that's called, Orb of Agility for an extra 15 gold, I can then have jump twice per scenario. And so with 2 items, I can almost be as powerful as the single Boots of Striding that I could have bought for less.
Yeah.
Less, is it? No, it's actually cheaper, slightly cheaper if I get. Yeah, okay, well, there you go. It's 35 gold if I was to get the Boots of Striding and the Orb of Agility versus 40 gold. There you go. So it's all worth it.
Yeah, okay.
No, I do. I love the idea of these two use items rather than everything only
They're three
be
uses.
it's you. Oh, they're three. Sorry, three uses.
Yeah.
Yes, so they're multi use. I think that's really cool. Three use items rather than a single use or tappable. Like something in between, I
Yep.
think is really cool. Um, so yeah.
Yeah, no, love it. I think they're nice and easy, and it's fairly obvious that the others are going to be things like regen and maybe ward and maybe strengthen and all that. One for every little type of condition
Yeah.
or something. So yeah, we'll hopefully see the others.
And they're in a good spot because they take the slot, sorry, they take the bag slot, and I think this is the reason why maybe a couple of us don't have them yet, is that there are some pretty important bag slot items for new characters. Like, you get one at level 1 and 2. So, a healing pod or I don't know, whatever I chose. There are a couple of items that are kind of really niche and useful, sorry, really good, that maybe these aren't. But I think once you get into like your potentially second, if it's something really important for your character, but definitely your third and fourth bag items, I think these are great gap fillers.
mm,
To, as you said, just give yourself that chance to jump if you've got a character that doesn't have jump, or just 3 lots of advantage is, um, really good to make sure that those big hits don't miss.
yes.
Right. So I think it's a good design.
Yep. And I did have that on the Vortex, and it was very good. All the fortune. So yeah, I like it. This is item number 20. We just recently got this. This is a curious pendant, 60 gold. It's a headpiece. It's a once-off use that can't be recoverable. During your turn, you may recover one lost played card this round. And we talked a little bit about this when we actually unlocked it and we got it, and it went straight to me on a character that's going to be using a lot of burn cards. I don't know how much I like this. I like, obviously, as the character playing this kind of thing, I like it, but I don't like that it exists.
I agree.
Yeah.
This is one of those ones.
It's expensive. So obviously, it's a lot to save for.
Yeah, that's a good point actually. Like maybe because it's 60 gold. So maybe the idea is that, buying this is kind of the equivalent of buying an enchantment or something like that, or half of a good enchantment. So therefore, you might be able to enchant a level 1 or 2 card with a +1, which is over your cycle is going to be more useful for this. So maybe it's balanced in that way. But this seems like one of those items that Reddit post we were talking about earlier, just stops you having to think about stuff because it's just like get a card back. That's what it says. You know,
Yeah.
do one of your cards that is really good. You can have again. Go.
Yeah, I'm just the more I'm looking at it, the more I can see the limitations, but I still kind of don't like it. But you still like if you've got those persistence, like Wang, for example, force field, right? You can't get that back because it's not one you're using this turn. It's not a burn card, so you can't utilize it to get those juicy persistence back. Which then
Yep.
it's more of those impact losses, which I have.
Mm.
But yeah, still it just doesn't feel right.
Yeah, I think two last things on this one. If it moved it from your lost pile to your discard pile, I think I'd like that more.
Mm,
Because then it's not a case of just chaining the cards, right? So you still have to wait to get it back. And I mean, it means if you want to get it back right away, then you've got to have this and you've got to have a stand pot, right? Which is a big investment to be able to spam a particular card. The other thing is that I compare this, or no, I think you mentioned it. And so the conversation was comparing this to the Broken Mirror in
yes.
Frosthaven, which is when
Yeah.
you burn a
Good
card,
example.
swap it with one of your other cards,
Yes.
right? Which is kind of that, hey, I want to do this thing again, but you're not just not burning a card, right? So I
Yeah,
like
it comes
that
with a
more
good cost.
because that's very like my character wants to do this one thing specifically. It is a bit more varied because you can use it on burn persistence because it's just replace a card in your discard with one of your other cards. So but I like that because it's interesting design. Sorry, interesting strategy planning things. Whereas this is more just like, I don't know, if you had a card that said attack 10, burn, right? You'd be like, well, this is really good with that because I get to do 2 attack 10s. Like, that's not thinking. That's just be like, well, the big I do twice.
I do like
Like,
not thinking.
yeah. So yeah. Anyway, it's this isn't as broken and busted as I think it appears on the, or we thought, probably I first thought, because I think for a couple of things you've listed, like A, it has to be on the turn you play it, and B, it costs 60 gold. Um, I think it's just probably more through the lens of the character so far in all of the Haven world out that we've seen. Like every single character, you've probably found the one character this is the most busted on.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much.
So
Well,
well done.
yeah, thanks. Item 22, we have the steel helmet. So this is 30 gold. When attacked, consider any +1 modifier card the enemy draws to be a +0 instead. It does put a -1 into your deck, and it is a hat.
Mhm.
You have this currently on your Beetle, and you
Mm.
look like you're getting a lot of value out of this.
Mm.
Like an insane amount of value.
For a defensive item, I think this is really good. Like it's deceptively good. I don't know. It doesn't look that great. But on a character that wants to get hit a bunch, it's really tricky to get consistent sources of damage reduction because your armor has a certain amount of ticks. You take a shield, like I think there probably is armor that has like 3 or 4 gain a shield, and you can probably get the tower shield, I think, from Gloomhaven, which has like reduced. So you can build to a large amount of shield and then have items that refresh those. But it's which I like that working through and that kind of combo. But this in itself is just like there's a chance that it's going to be reduced. Um, yeah, so I
Which
think it's
is,
good, and takes the helm slot, which is also an important, like, kind of, item slot.
yes. I do like the fact that when you are getting hit for this, you are also, and if it's with disadvantage or with advantage, I don't really care. You're taking two of these potentially out of the deck, right? You're taking one
Mm,
of them out. That's one less +1 that we are going to get on us. Just around that kind of area. Obviously, it may shuffle immediately after that, etc. But yeah, it's a pain in the ass from an admin point of view when I forget about it. And I'm calculating everything, and I'm like, okay, cool, it's 4. And you're like, well, that +1's a 0. And I'm like, and that just undoes everything in my head,
yeah, I
basically.
know, I know.
No, no,
I'm
it's
trying to
not
be
an issue.
quicker
It's
I'm
not an
trying to be
issue.
quicker on it to just do the math to tell you the number, because then I also will work out if I've got shields and stuff, but, yeah. But, yeah, no, I think that's why when I don't think I missed the scenario where this item came out, and I think Phil got it, right? And then he insta sold it, and I was just like, "Whoa!" Like, but I think it didn't fit with what he wanted to do anyway, which makes sense. So
Didn't
yeah,
fit with getting hit, yeah.
yeah, yeah. But he has one of his crystallized things that does something similar, so
That's
it
true.
kind of would be a bit of a non combo. But yeah,
Woven plate armor, item 23. So this was something that I picked up on my Vortex. It's 50 gold. I can't remember how it came, probably from a chest. When attacked, the attacker gains disadvantage on the attack, and you gain 2 shield for the attack, and it's tappable. Chest piece. I
mm,
didn't buy this, so it was given straight to my Vortex, and I thought it was brilliant. I think that there was probably, I can't remember, a Frosthaven version of this. I know from a disadvantage. And yeah, the disadvantage, I think leather armor or hardened leather armor or something like that. But having the 2 in there as well. Sometimes even if
mm,
I know that I'm probably going to take a bit of a dicking, I just want that just for the 2 shield. And
yeah.
combining the two together was really, really handy. Yeah, I like this.
Yeah, the worst thing about this item is remembering to use it before you get attacked.
Which I definitely forget to do sometimes.
Yeah, that was the problem. You're like, I really want a disadvantage on that one," but you've already seen them draw the +1, and that kind of feels cheaty if you
Oh
do,
yeah.
right? Like, uh, I think this is really cool, especially for characters that don't want to get hit very often. Like those characters that have lowish HP that are going to stay out of combat, but sometimes find themselves in a position they're getting hit for 4 or 5, and you're like, "That's a lot of my health." It's a good way of just mitigating that down and being like, "I'm now going to get out of dodge."
Hmm.
So yeah, really good.
Yeah.
And also,
Unless I
it's
remember, I
not
forget.
with you, yeah, yeah. So one of the things I think with a lot of the items that have the tracking abilities is it's whether that character wants to long rest or not. Because some characters want to long rest way more than others, and don't really care because like their cards are pretty like uh you're not going to pull core um, puzzle pieces out of their deck and be like, well, now I can't play because I have to long rest because of that. And this is a good item because it doesn't really matter if you refresh it or not because you're probably putting it on a character that is maybe only getting 1 use out of it a scenario, maybe a second if you happen to refresh it, but if you don't, it doesn't matter.
Mm,
Whereas it like when you're taking items that are like multiple refreshing ones or ones that have like 3 or 4 ticks, you want to be long resting to do that. So
mm,
I like that this has that flexibility of being an item that a non-long resting character wants to take,
yeah.
if that makes
No,
sense. So
no, it does.
hmm.
I agree. We picked up the next one, item 24, Mantle of Purity, 20 gold. When you would gain one or more negative conditions, prevent the condition. Tappable. Chess piece. Uh, very good. Like you said, I think we found that on my Vortex. I didn't take it, but we got it around that time. Quite recently, actually, for
Mm.
something. And it would have been really handy to help with. I mean, on my current character, I've got ways of wounding and rupturing myself. So, there's a world, but also it's not just for me, it's obviously for monsters as well. If you find that things like poison and all that is really going to wreck your day, this could be really handy for that.
Mm. Because it's tappable, you get to choose, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, I like that. I was gonna say the only thing that don't it seems because it's taking the chest slot, preventing a condition on your chest seems rough.
Seems like a lot, because
Where
there
you
was
can
there was
take
a little
the
shield, right? There was a little one-handed shield that used to do this.
yeah, there's the shield, which feels like better, or even the cure potion, which removes one, which you can use on your turn if you're stunned and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't. I think it's fine
It's
and it's
cheap.
cheap. Yeah, yeah, it is. It's probably one that you can. Yeah, again, if you was, I think the Vortex is a really good example. If you were starting the Vortex at level 1 or 2 and you were like buying an item, this would be a good one. Not if you knew how it worked, going like, yeah, I don't really have to worry about that muddle thing now,
It's
right?
it,
Like,
exactly. It's mostly for the muddle. It allows me to sit on two sometimes at the start of my turn, and I think that'll be good.
yeah. So,
The next one's Bone Clad Shawl. This is item 25. 30 gold, 2 persistent slots. On the next 2 attacks targeting you performed by adjacent enemies, gain retaliate 2 for the attack. Tappable chest item. Uh, Also mandatory. This is currently on Phil.
mhm.
And he's, yeah, it's actually done a fair bit of work.
Mm.
Um, but unfortunately mandatory in the odd cases that, yeah, actually, is that ever seen as a bad thing?
I guess if it was going to die anyway, right? If something's on 1 HP and has a wound on it,
Yeah,
um, right, and you're like, we can just forget about it. But yeah, I think
forces
it's
your
fine.
PQ to advance, maybe.
That's true.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, do
So,
you like that?
yeah, I mean,
30
this is
gold.
cool if you want to be retaliating.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's not much more to say about that.
Nah.
This one's cool. So the next one we have is 27. Translocation device. 40 gold. During your turn, swap positions with one enemy within range 5. It's a bag item. It's one use only. And you seem to get a lot of switcheroo to venge swap items, Gaz.
Yeah, for some reason I always end up on them. Yeah, well, I've actually got this on my Beetle, and I found it actually to be quite useful.
You use
It,
it well. You use it. It's not just willy nilly either to set something up for someone else or anything like that. The times that I think the 2 times I've seen you use it, maybe 3, have all been
mm,
very effective. Like that, it's enabled a bigger turn
mm.
that you didn't quite have planned, and then that has been the difference maker, which is pretty huge.
Yeah, I think based being able to move 5 in obviously with restrictions outside of your like that's that action economy thing again, right? Like a free move 5 is really good. The fact that I have to swap with an enemy is the limitation on it. But yeah, it's kind of worked. It's worked well so far.
No, big fan. Uh, yeah, I don't really see it being an item I would ever pick up. I think that's more from concern that I will use it incorrectly and get booked.
Well, like I have, well, it's probably more about booking everyone else, right? You swap with that. I'm going to swap with that enemy, and like, oh, now they hit Phil for 10. I feel like this is good for me as well because I have a lot of bottom actions that are not moves,
True.
right? And so the ability to be able to do those and also move, right, is also handy.
Yeah,
So I think that's why I'm seeing it have a few more uses for my
because
character.
you only have one bag slot right now. Sorry, at your level, because you're 2 or 3. You're 3 now.
No, I
So,
just hit 3, so
so
I
you get
had
two.
2 this last slot. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say because
So I
this
picked
is the
up the
one.
healing potion.
That's right. Yeah.
Mm.
So this is the one that you've been your one bag item, at least from that
Yeah,
video.
I think I originally bought the leaf rock, but then I took that once, I think, and then got this in the first scenario I played, and I was just like, between those two, I'm going to take this. It's more useful. And then I just hit 3, and I bought the health potion because I need to heal myself somehow. So, yeah, I haven't used the item that I bought at the very start.
No, that's fair enough. Item 29, intoxicating potion, 15 gold. During your turn, perform heal 5. poison self
Hmm.
as a bag item. It's a one-off. This is amazing on you.
I know I want this item, but Mark's got it, so I have to wait for him to retire.
Like really good on you with
Yeah,
anti-venom,
I know.
right?
Yes, 100%. Yeah, it's perfect. Like I can literally it's play anti-venom and that if it basically says if I play anti-venom, it says heal 6 and transfer poison onto a monster.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So,
So, but on its own, as its own window, I like the fact that it's a big heal, but it comes with, a caveat.
hmm,
Like, and Mark's been using that. He's almost been using it during his long rests, where the little heal, sorry, he uses. I can't remember the ordering. He's found good ways of using this. Or he uses a minor mana pot, sorry, minor healing pot sometimes to remove the poison to then pop this on to then you put it back on him, almost like a
yep.
lid. But yeah, it's a nice little burst heal. And there was we had something in Frosthaven that did something like this, but it was to an ally.
Yeah, as the scroll. There was like a scroll of healing that was like heal 5 at range something, but they get poisoned.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. But it's cool that this is for you.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll
I,
get
I like it. I think it's quite powerful and it like a heal 5 is pretty big. And the poison isn't as much of a disadvantage if you know it's coming. Poison only sucks when you don't expect it and their monsters are designed to make use of it. When
yeah.
you're in control of when you're getting poisoned, right? It's substantially less of an issue. So yeah.
The next one we've got is Iron Snare. This is item number 30. 15 gold. It's a one-off bag item. During a turn, create one immobilized trap in an empty hex within range 3. I'm fairly mad about this. I can see myself buying this as a heal too, because
I'm
I'll
gonna
eat
say
it.
that.
That's about it. There's nothing I really want to add to that. You?
No, fine. It's fine. It's whatever.
Dizzying Tincture, probably one of the first items we got. This is item 58. I'm almost certain it's the first one we found, probably in a chest. I think I
Mhm.
looted the first chest in the scenario 1, and we got this, and this was during your attack ability at disarm to 1 attack. It was fairly cool. It had a couple of moments. I haven't really found an urge to pick this up. And this is something I'm noticing in Crimson Scales. There are a lot of bag items.
Mm.
And there's a lot of, we've talked about competition and hits and shits, and, things are competing for the same thing. Uh, yeah, I think
I
pretty
think it's
straightforward.
really good, but it's not when you only have 1 or 2 items. It's probably not what you want to be taking because there's no way of it. It's good because it can't be abused because it says 1 attack, right?
Hmm.
So it can't be a busted to be like, oh, I AOE and disarm everything. And it's 15 gold, so it's cheap, so it is easy to pick up. But I think as you picked it up, you didn't have a bag item, and then you used it for a bit until you didn't want it anymore, and you got rid of it. So I think it's a good randomly find use item.
Well, as I increased in level, I was still getting other items. This is on Vortex. And there was like, I was always down to, do I want my healing pot or do I want my dizzying tincture? And then I would weigh up the scenario, and 9 times out of 10, I'd be like, I'll take the healing pot. And so half the time I wasn't even bringing this towards the end.
Yeah.
So yeah, a bit of a waste. A recent one that we picked up, item 59, Drake's Blood. So I have this currently as I think we did it last week. 15 gold, bag item, one-off use. During your turn, remove all positive conditions from all enemies within range 2. This can be used on enemies that have invisible. And I really like the design of this item. I don't know how useful it is. There was a time in the most recent scenario that I could have removed the invis off the oozes if they had done it. There
Mhm.
was a time also where the forest imps were healing and strengthening the earth demons, and I could have removed that strengthen. I like the fact that I'm starting to see places that I can use this. I'm not selling it because I've only got one bag item, but I actually just like the fact that it's very different and a bit
Mm.
out of the box.
Yeah, I like it. And I like the effect. I just wish the opportunity cost of bringing it wasn't so big because it's not going to be useful most of the time.
Hmm.
So I'd like it more if it acted as a cure potion or what it does. So it's like a better version of a cure potion. Remove 1 negative condition from yourself or remove all positive conditions from an enemy within range 2. I don't know if that just makes it better than a cure potion. That's why it can't exist, but we've got those stupid boots, so why not, right?
It's a good
But yeah, I
point.
think pardon?
It's a good point.
Yeah, so I know I like it. I also I really like the design because there's not a lot of things in the game that allow you to remove negative conditions. Sorry, positive conditions off enemies, and
Mm.
there's none that I can think of that allow you to move invisible. So having that as an option, and if we had found ourselves in a position where the boss made itself invisible and we had a big turn going, and you're like, don't worry, guys, I'm going to use this random item I have to make it not invisible, that would have been the most clutch play. So I love that that's an option, but I just don't see it once you sell it as anyone ever
A
buying it.
million percent. I
Yeah.
think I'll have it for the lifetime of the character,
Yeah.
right? And it'll have a moment at some stage. It may even have a second. Once I retire the character, we will never see it again.
No. It's a good one for those that may not have listened to it. Way back when we did our hits and shits, I talked about this utility slot item that I wanted.
Gaz's
So an
utility slot.
additional character slot that you had, which was for utility items, which had to be for these really weird niche abilities. Like, and this is one of those. Something that you're gonna have, and it's probably not going to be applicable. It's not super powerful unless it is, but then even then, it's not game changing. Stuff like that. So.
Yeah. The next bunch is the stones. So these are the random stones that we've been collecting. This is item 95, 97, and 100. These are basically elemental stones. They're 25 gold except for the wonder stone for some reason. Ah, because it allows you to generate anything. Interesting, interesting. So during a turn, you may place one character token on it, similar to the orbs we had earlier, to generate the element that it's named after. We
Mhm.
have a wind one, we have a earth one, and we have a wild one. And once there are two tokens on the card, it is consumed.
Have we got the Wonderstone, do we?
I think so. I
Okay,
think
cool.
Phil had it on his flask.
Okay, cool. Yeah, yeah. Well, I got the Tremor Stone. I haven't been bringing it because I keep bringing other items. But yeah, I think these are like specific mana potions, right? Like, which I think is fine.
But you get two, which is
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of
That
better. Yeah.
yeah, that's what I mean. But it's not as flexible, and I like
No.
that. That's a good trade off. It's like, hey, you can use it twice, but it's only generating this one thing. That's
Yes.
why I kind of don't like the Wonderstone because that seems silly because it's like negating the negative. So, like that, but again, I mean, it's 40, and I mean, the mana potion's probably 20 or 10 even. So maybe that's the cost. I don't know.
Yeah. I
Gonna
mean,
some
it's
items have
interesting.
to be better.
I like that they've given more options to create elements, and they've found
Mm.
an interesting way of doing it, and giving you two charges of it. And it's a bag slot item. It makes it less. It's more exciting than the boringness of, I guess, mana potions, because we're just
Mm.
used to those. Pop it, make it an element. Yeah, what do you want? But I like that these feel niche towards a synergy that you're trying to create either with yourself or a teammate,
Yeah, and
which
that's
is
the thing,
cool.
right? Like, I got the mana potion on my Galaxy, and I had no real reason to have it. I did use light and dark, but I was just like, I don't know, whatever. I've got 10 gold to spare. I'll buy it, or how much it was. And I ended up mostly using it for other people. So, like, randomly creating dark for you if you needed it, or light, and I think maybe sometimes like something else that Phil wanted. So I felt like that was a utility item I just brought for the party, right? If you take one of these stones, you're taking it for you, right? Like you're going, like again, I've got the grass stone, knowing that there's a couple of times that I might want to use consume grass, so I just plan around that. And I like that they're more specific for the player. It's kind of a different item, but yeah,
It probably
good.
increases a lot of value in when you have two people who are overlapping.
Mm.
Because we overlapped with dark and those kind of situations where one of us brings one and it's we both generate enough, but on those odd chances that we can't, it's there. Mm.
Yeah, I think like I got the Stormstone in the last scenario. I think from that chest. I wasn't very excited because we don't need wind. If that had been the Inferno Stone, I would have been very excited because fire is the thing that I'm really struggling to generate and that I want to be using more. So in hindsight, I should have purchased that.
No, 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 you're fine. Just do better.
Yep.
Last one, very quickly. Look, we've got the three from the most recent Terror Scale encounter. They're all weapons that are mostly to deal with me. I mean, other people can use them as well. But I want to talk about Ghost Shimmer Honey, which actually came from your PQ, the Beetle PQ. The one that unlocked the Beetle is what I'm trying to say.
Is that a bag item?
It's a bag item. It's called. It's CS item AA02, the Ghost Shimmer Honey.
Where is it?
I don't know where you might find it. It's the one Phil keeps using. It's 35 gold. It's a bag item. It's a one-off. During your turn, perform heal 3, regenerate, affect self, and 1 adjacent ally, which is proving to be, it's pretty strong. I think it's fair
Very
to say.
strong.
Yeah. I
Yep.
mean, it's a healing pot that affects you and a friend, and you both get regen.
Mm-hmm.
How much is a healing pot if you have that up? Is it 10 minor? 10 or 15? I wonder.
10.
Yeah, okay. This is 35, so I mean, it definitely costs a lot more, but it's going to pay dividends over time.
Yeah. And I think that, I mean, like, we've kind of gone on about those boots that were better than normal boots or a combination of. And I think it's important to have better items. Like, the Wonderstone is kind of a better version of a mana pot in a way. And that is clearly a better version of a healing pot. But I think that's important as long as they're kind of staying at the minor version. So, like, that's heal 3 on you and someone else in regen. It's not going to be, that's not better than a major healing pot. And like the Wonderstone, a greater mana pot makes 2 elements. So that's where they have different uses in a way. So it's like making a better version of the lower version is kind of okay. And that's why with those jump boots, it's interesting that it's move 2. I always thought they'd make them move 1 and jump, because then it's like not as good as striding, but you're getting the jump. And then, yeah, I don't know. So yeah, I think that's fine to have upgraded versions of items as long as they're not busted.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting when we go back to Gloomhaven 2.0, and then we can go backwards again. Because I haven't seen any of them, so I'm looking forward to seeing what
Yeah,
it
me
looks
neither. I
like.
assume they fixed them. Although, yeah, we will see. We will see. So,
All right. I might close this out if there's any things you... No, I'm getting head
oh
shakes.
no, the Beetle.
What beetle? The
We
remote
got a
beetle?
remote Beetle.
All right, well, I skipped over it. I saw it there. The remote beetle. Do you have the number? 88. Is that right?
88. So, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Will anybody take this with them, even though it is free? Right? Free. It costs no money. Will anybody take this at all once we have finished the quest to unlock 10 doors with it?
I say no. I say
100%.
no unless someone is playing some ridiculously breach character. Like, it just flies through a door and it really wants to just... I don't know. Which...
The interesting though, this works with those bastions stand in the door and
I
next
think
to
so.
yeah, there's one that's opened a door and kills something, right?
Yeah, that's the one Phil had.
Yes.
Overachiever, I think.
Yeah. So there you go. Remote Beetle is the
But you would have to buy this in anticipation of getting the VG.
that's the next level play, right? Like, hey, I'm just gonna take the Remote Beetle just in case I get
Oh my god.
Overachiever.
Gaz, you've got your little utility slot. I am now going to have the donkey slot. So it's like the utility slot, but the whole party has access to this one minor item, right? There you go. It's that.
That's it, done. I love it.
And it'll be like, sure. It's like Frosthaven Pets. It's like, when do
Yeah.
we want to use this, right?
I like the idea of something like that but you have to choose it before you start the scenario. So it comes along with you, right? And because normally everyone gets to change their cards and their items before you start, but it's this one item that doesn't take a slot up. It's super niche utility, but at the start you have to pick a person to carry it, right?
Yeah.
And then that person like, yeah, oh, cool. It's like, oh, hey guys, can I have the Beetle like thing today? Like, have you got a door beat like a battle gold? Like, no, personal reasons. So,
we're going to have that many extra slots soon. Just little tiny utility ones.
Yep. It's going to be like a MMO once it's been around for 20 years and someone logs in. They haven't logged in since it first started. Like, whoa, there's like 8 more pages of item slots. What's going on here? So,
well, we'll wrap it up there. Thanks again for joining us for another episode of amDirt. We'll be covering Scenario 6 next week, unless a road event derails our plans. It hasn't happened yet in Crimson Scales, but don't rule it out. And we'll probably be saying goodbye to the Chained Helm. But more excitedly, we will be getting a look at another new class. In the meantime, I've been your host, Eddie, and I have been joined again by Gaz.
and remember, when it comes to rolling terribly, it's all in the wrist.